I was standing in the middle of the upscale restaurant restroom, staring at my own reflection as if it belonged to some other woman, a woman with steadier hands, calmer breathing, and the kind of life that didn't tremble at the edges. The soft golden light glowed over the marble counters, giving me that warm, expensive sheen the restaurant was designed for. My hair was perfectly styled, my makeup flawless, my dress pressed, my posture confident. On the outside, I looked like I belonged here. Inside, I felt like I was made of cracking glass. My best friend, Ava, had told me this dinner would change everything. She had said that my boyfriend, Lucas, had been acting different lately, and that she was certain he had planned something special for tonight. She had winked at me, squeezed my hands, and told me that if I didn't walk out of this restaurant with a ring, she would personally drag him to the nearest jewelry store. That had been Ava. Always bold. Always sure of herself. Always sure of what I deserved before I even knew it myself. I took one more breath, pushed the restroom door open, and walked back toward the private dining room where Lucas was waiting. The hallway smelled faintly of truffle butter and wine. Soft jazz played overhead. The entire restaurant felt both intimate and artificial, like a perfect moment constructed for the sake of photographs. Lucas stood when he saw me approach. Always a gentleman. Always polished. He was wearing the navy blazer I had chosen for him, slim fit, elegant, with a subtle sheen that highlighted his shoulders. His smile was soft, controlled, like always. He told me I looked incredible tonight. The words warmed me, even though he didn't say them with the enthusiasm I was secretly hoping for. He gestured for me to sit. The waiters brought out another bottle of wine. The candles flickered slightly between us. We talked about safe things at first, my work at the marketing firm, his project at the architecture agency, the mutual friends we hadn't seen in a while. He seemed distracted, though. Restless. He kept checking his phone, turning it face down every time the screen lit up. I pretended not to notice. Eventually, I asked him how the meeting with his older brother had gone. He tensed almost imperceptibly. He said his brother was pushing again, still insisting Lucas return to the family business instead of wasting his talent designing boutique buildings for private clients. I told him he didn't owe his family anything. He didn't respond. Instead, he asked how my mother was doing after her surgery. His tone was genuine. He had always been kind that way, attentive in the places where it mattered. I told him she was recovering slowly, that she still refused help, that she insisted she was fine even though she could barely lift a grocery bag. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. His palms were warm. Familiar. Steady. This was the man I loved. The man I had spent 2 years building a quiet, steady life with. The man who, I thought, would become my husband. So when he said my name gently, I felt the air shift. Like a scene in a movie when the music softens because something important is about to happen. My heart thudded. He said we needed to talk. And the world stopped. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Soft. Kind. Afraid. A kindness like that can feel like cruelty when you know what's coming. I felt my spine straighten, my hands go cold. I asked him if everything was okay. He hesitated. Then he told me that something had come up. Something he never expected. Something he had been avoiding because he didn't want to hurt me. My chest tightened. He said he didn't want to end things. He said that wasn't it. But something had happened, and he needed to be honest before it grew into something unmanageable. I could barely breathe. He said someone had contacted him. Someone from my past. Someone with information about me. And about him. And about something that happened years ago. I stared at him, confused. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. My past was painfully normal. My life had been painfully ordinary. He shook his head slightly and said it wasn't about my childhood. It was about 5 years ago. 5 years ago. The year my father died. The year Ava and I moved into our small apartment. The year I had my first real job. The year Lucas and I hadn't even met yet. I told him nothing significant had happened that year. He said that wasn't true. He said someone had sent him documents. Photos. Receipts. Voice recordings. Someone who claimed to know something about me that could change everything between us. I laughed, an instinctive, brittle sound. I told him he was being ridiculous. He didn't laugh. He said he had spent the last week trying to verify whether the information was real. My chest tightened painfully. I asked who contacted him. He hesitated. Then he whispered a name I hadn't heard in years. Mia. My stomach dropped. Mia. My old roommate. My friend from my first job. The girl who once swore she would kill for me, the kind of dramatic loyalty that burns bright and fast and ends in ashes. We'd lived together for 9 months. Then one morning she had left without explanation, leaving only a short note that said she needed a break from everything. We'd fallen out of touch. I didn't know where she moved. I hadn't thought about her in so long. Her name tasted like metal in my mouth. I asked Lucas what she had told him. He didn't look at me. He said she claimed that I had lied to him. About something major. About something that happened 5 years ago. And she said she had proof. I felt sweat gather at the base of my neck. Because I had no idea what she could be talking about. Lucas said he had not believed a word of it at first. He said he had cursed at her, told her to leave us alone, accused her of trying to stir trouble. But then she had sent him the documents. A folder. With my name on it. With dates. With photos. With a video. With a message from her saying, "She isn't who you think she is. Ask her about July 14th. July 14th. The date made my blood run cold. I whispered that I didn't know what that meant. Lucas looked at me with such heartbreaking sadness that I nearly lost my breath. He said he hoped that was true. He said he needed me to tell him it was. He said he needed me to be honest. Before I could respond, his phone lit up on the table. A new message. From a number saved under a name I recognized instantly. Ava. I stared at it. He stared at it. He didn't move to hide it this time. I asked him quietly why Ava was messaging him. He swallowed. He said she had been helping him understand what was going on. Something inside me cracked. Ava, my best friend, had been talking to my boyfriend about secrets from my past that I didn't even know existed? I asked what exactly Ava had told him. He looked away. He said she had confirmed that July 14th was significant. That something had indeed happened that day. And that I had chosen not to remember it. Coldness spread through my body. Because Ava never lied. Not about important things. Not about dates. Not about trauma. If she said something happened July 14, then something happened July 14th. But what? Lucas reached across the table, gripping my hands. He said he couldn't marry me. He couldn't even move forward with me. Until he knew what July 14th was. My pulse roared in my ears. I told him I genuinely had no idea what they were talking about. He stared into my eyes, searching. Searching for guilt. Searching for deception. Trying to see if I was lying. But I wasn't. I wasn't. I swear I wasn't. He let go of my hand slowly. Then he did something I didn't expect. He said Mia was in the city. Tonight. Right now. Waiting at a nearby hotel. He said she wanted to meet with all 3 of us. Me. Him. And Ava. He said Ava was already there. My stomach lurched. I told him I didn't want to go. He said I had to. That I owed it to myself. That I owed it to him. That whatever happened that day needed to come into the light. The candles flickered. The jazz faded. The restaurant walls seemed to close around me. I whispered one question. Why did Ava go there without telling me? Lucas didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because I already knew. A part of me, a dark, trembling part, had always feared something like this. The part that knew Ava loved fiercely, but also possessively. The part that remembered the way she had looked at Mia back then. Suspicious, jealous, wary. The part that remembered that Mia and I had grown close. Maybe too close. In ways Ava didn't like. I stood up abruptly. Lucas stood as well. He said he would drive. I nodded numbly. As we walked out of the restaurant toward the car, I felt the warm night press in around us. The city shimmered with lights. People laughed in the distance. Cars passed. Normal life continued. But inside me, something massive had shifted. A door had opened. A memory had stirred. And a fear I didn't know I carried uncoiled slowly in my chest. Because I suddenly remembered something. A fragment. A detail. From 5 years ago. On July 14th. Something I had buried. Something I had run from. Something that had broken Mia and me apart. Something I had sworn to forget. And now it was coming back. Waiting for me. In a hotel room. With Ava and Mia. And a folder. With my name on it. And I knew. Whatever happened next. Would change everything. The drive to the hotel felt longer than it was. The city outside the car window blurred into streaks of light, headlights, shop signs, neon reflections and puddles left over from the afternoon rain. Lucas drove in silence, his hands steady on the wheel, his jaw clenched. Every now and then I saw his throat work like he was swallowing down words he wasn't ready to say. I tried to focus on my breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. My therapist used to describe it as anchoring myself in the present. It had never felt harder. Every time I blinked, my mind tried to claw its way back 5 years, toward something I'd refused to look at for so long that it had become this vague, dark mass in the back of my head. July 14th. I knew that date. My body knew it before my conscious mind did. I remembered hot air. Heavy music. The taste of cheap vodka and lime. The sensation of leaning on someone's shoulder and feeling the world tilt. And then, headlights. A loud noise. A scream, maybe mine, maybe someone else's. Then nothing. My stomach churned. Lucas said softly that I looked like I was going to be sick. He asked if I wanted him to pull over. I shook my head and told him I wanted this over with. My voice sounded flat, far away, as if someone else were speaking. He said he was scared too. He said this was not how he imagined tonight would go. He admitted he had thought, a few weeks ago, that he might propose soon. The word hung in the air between us like a ghost. He added quietly that now, everything felt suspended, waiting for whatever truth was about to land. I looked at his profile, the straight nose, the faint lines forming at the corners of his eyes, the tiny scar near his jawline from a childhood fall off a bike. He was real, solid, a person I loved. And somehow parts of my life that existed before him now threatened to swallow him too. We pulled into the hotel parking lot. It was one of those mid-range business hotels, clean, anonymous, with glass doors and a lobby that smelled like air freshener and coffee. Lucas parked, turned off the ignition, and sat there for a moment with his hands still on the wheel. He said we could leave right then if I wanted. That we could block the number, cut contact with Mia, tell Ava to come home, and pretend none of this was happening. For a heart-stopping second, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to run. But there was a weight in my chest that felt like a stone pulled from the bottom of a lake. It had been sitting there for years. I knew that if I turned away now, it would drown me eventually. I told him I needed to know. I added that if he didn't want to come, he didn't have to. He shook his head and said that if something awful was waiting upstairs, he refused to let me face it alone. That made my throat tighten. We went inside. The lobby was bright, the floor polished. A soft hum of conversation drifted from the seating area where a few people sat with laptops. The receptionist barely glanced at us. Lucas led me to the elevator, pressed the button for the 5th floor. The metal doors closed with a quiet, final sound. In the elevator, I watched the floor numbers light up one by one. My reflection in the mirrored doors looked tired now, the careful makeup and perfect hair unable to hide the panic in my eyes. Lucas said he had already texted Ava. He said she had confirmed which room. He added that Mia had insisted on a private suite so there would be no interruptions. The way he said insisted made my skin crawl. When the elevator doors opened, the hallway stretched ahead of us, quiet and carpeted, lined with identical doors. Soft lighting. Beige walls. The kind of sterile anonymity where anything could happen and no one next door would know. We stopped outside room 512. Lucas looked at me, silently asking if I was ready. I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. He knocked. There was a pause, then the sound of a chain sliding, a lock turning. The door opened slowly. Ava stood there first. Her eyes found mine immediately. They were darker than usual, rimmed with mascara that had smudged slightly, like she'd rubbed at them. She looked glamorous, as always, sleek black top, jeans that fit perfectly, hair pulled up in a messy bun that probably took effort. But there was something brittle around her mouth, a tightness I didn't recognize. She said in a low voice that she was glad I came. She added that she had told Lucas this was the only way. That I deserved the whole truth, no matter how bad it was. Her words made something inside me flinch. She stepped aside. Mia was sitting on the edge of the hotel bed. Seeing her again was like being punched in the chest by an old life. Her hair was shorter now, cut into a messy bob. There were faint lines around her mouth that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Her shoulders were narrower than I remembered, like she'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. She stood up slowly when she saw me, her eyes wide with something like guilt and determination at the same time. She said my name carefully, as if testing how it felt to say it again out loud. I just nodded. For a second, the room held its breath. Then I saw it, a manila folder on the small round table between the armchairs. My name written on the tab in black marker. My heart lurched. Lucas closed the door behind us. He stayed near me, but not touching. Ava perched on the desk chair, crossing her legs defensively. Mia gestured toward the armchairs and said we should sit. I sank down into one. The fabric was scratchy. Lucas sat beside me, close but not entirely relaxed. Mia took a breath. She said she had been waiting a long time to have this conversation. She said she had tried, once, years ago, but Ava had convinced her that it would destroy me. She said she regretted listening. I glanced at Ava. Her jaw tightened. I asked in a thin voice what July 14th was. Mia's eyes flickered. She said she would start at the beginning. 5 years ago, she reminded me, we had been working together at that miserable first job, the marketing internship that paid almost nothing but gave us just enough of a foothold to move out of our parents' houses. We had been broke, exhausted, and exhilarated by the idea of being adults. Our tiny shared apartment had smelled like cheap wine, takeout, and laundry detergent. That summer, our team had gone out for a big Friday night after landing a major client. There had been bonuses and open bars and cheap enthusiasm. Our boss had insisted on shots. We had all been drunk by 11. I remembered pieces. I remembered leaning on the sticky bar. I remembered the bartender laughing at something Ava said. I remembered Mia's arm around my shoulders. I remembered Lucas was not in my life yet then. And I remembered a fight. Mia said that at some point in the night, I had gotten into an argument with our boss. He had made a comment about my father's death, some tasteless attempt at a joke about grief making people overly sensitive. I had snapped. I had thrown my drink on him. People had stared. There had been shouting. She said that after that, security had suggested we leave. I nodded slowly. That much I remembered, the sharp anger, the humiliation, the sense of the evening tilting sideways. She said that she and Ava had gotten me out of the bar, both of them half dragging me because I could barely walk straight. I had insisted I was fine. I had insisted I could drive. Both of them had argued with me, but I had shoved my keys into my hand and told them I was not a child and I could do what I wanted. Shame flushed hot under my skin as she spoke. I had a faint memory of cool night air, car headlights in the parking lot, my own voice raised and slurring. Mia said she and Ava had argued with each other too. Mia had said we should call a cab, leave the car, and deal with it tomorrow. Ava had said we didn't have the money for that it was a waste when we had a perfectly good car and I had driven drunk before and been fine. Hearing that made my stomach lurch. I asked Ava if that was true. She said I had always been reckless when I drank. She said she had tried to talk sense into me, but I had a way of dismissing her concerns. Mia's mouth tightened, like she'd just listened to a lie. She continued. She said that eventually, I had gotten behind the wheel. She had taken the front passenger seat. Ava had gotten in the back. They had hoped to persuade me to pull over a few streets away and swap seats. They had hoped I would calm down. We pulled out of the parking lot. The night was smeared colors. I remembered none of the details, only the feeling of speed and music and someone telling me to slow down. Then Mia said the part my body already knew before my brain did. There had been a man crossing the road. At a place that was not a crosswalk, lit only partly by a flickering street lamp. She said that he had stepped out from between two parked cars. That the music had been loud. That we hadn't seen him until too late. She said I had hit the brakes, but the car had still jerked forward. She said there had been a thud. A scream. And then sudden, horrifying silence. My whole body went cold. I gripped the arms of the chair so tightly my knuckles ached. I whispered that this couldn't be true. Mia said there had been a man lying on the asphalt, not moving. Blood near his head. My hands had been shaking on the steering wheel. She had yelled my name. Ava had screamed that we had to get out, that we had to do something. I remembered none of that. I remembered only an image that now slid into place, a flash of something pale in the road. A sound like something cracking. Lucas was breathing hard beside me. I could feel the tension radiating off him. I asked what we had done. Mia said that she had wanted to call an ambulance immediately. She had reached for her phone. But Ava had stopped her. Ava had grabbed her wrist and said that if we called from our phones, we would be tracked. That we would be arrested. That I would go to prison. That my life would be over. That my mother would lose her only child. My head spun. Ava stared at the floor, her leg bouncing. Mia said she had argued. She had screamed that leaving a man possibly dying in the road was wrong. Ava had snapped that he might already be dead, that we couldn't change that, but we could at least protect me. That she refused to watch my life be destroyed because of one moment of stupidity. I looked at Ava again. She didn't meet my eyes. Mia said that in the end they had compromised, if you could call it that. They had pulled the car to the side. Ava had taken my keys with shaking hands and dragged me out of the driver's seat. She had shoved me into the back, telling me over and over that I had to forget this, that she would fix it, that I needed to trust her. The memory hit me then. Ava's face above me. Her hands gripping my shoulders. Her voice saying she had me, that I had to sleep, that everything would be okay if I just let her handle it. I'd thought it was just a bad night after a bar fight. It had been something else entirely. Mia said she had run to the nearest gas station down the road and called emergency services from the payphone outside, anonymously. She had told them there was a man in the road, possibly hit by a car, but had not given any names. Then they had driven away. I swallowed hard. I asked her what happened to the man. She said she had followed it in the news. He had survived. Barely. He had suffered head trauma, broken ribs, a shattered leg. He had been in a coma for a week. He had a long recovery ahead. But he hadn't died. Relief washed through me so fast I felt dizzy. But it didn't erase the horror. I asked why no one told me. Why had no one told me what I had done? Mia's eyes filled with tears. She said I had been hysterical the next morning. That I had woken up with almost no memory of what happened, only flashes of terror. I had kept asking if I'd done something terrible. She said Ava had told me that I'd almost gotten into a fight, that I'd caused a scene, that we'd left before anything really bad happened. And I had believed her. I had wanted to believe her. Mia said she had tried to tell me the truth that day. She had pulled me into the kitchen while Ava was in the shower and said there was more to the story. She had said we needed to talk. But before she could get the words out, Ava had walked in and stared at her with this look, this cold, warning look, that had made her shut down. Later, Ava had confronted Mia. She had said that she would not allow Mia to traumatize me unnecessarily. She had said that the man was alive, that there was no investigation, that nothing linked us to the accident. She had said that telling me now would only break me and ruin everything we'd built. Mia said she had been torn. Protect me or tell me. She had chosen silence. Until now. I whispered, why now? She said because the story hadn't ended there. She said Ava had gone back. Back where? I asked. Back to the hospital. Back to the man. My mind reeled. Mia said Ava had become obsessed. She had started following the case, searching his name online, checking for any updates. She had learned his family situation, an ex-wife, a teenage son, mounting medical bills. She had insisted she needed to make sure he stayed quiet. I stared, stunned. Mia said she hadn't understood what that meant until Ava had shown her something weeks later, the first receipt. It had been for a wire transfer. To the man's ex-wife. Mia said Ava had called it an act of kindness at first. She had told Mia that she wanted to help, anonymously, because she felt guilty. She had said that if they had money now, they might not go looking for whoever hit him. She had framed it as charity and damage control in one. I shook my head. I said I never knew about any of this. I never agreed to anything like that. Mia nodded. She said Ava had insisted I didn't need to know. That I was too fragile. That I would only spiral. She had said she would handle everything in my name. In my name. My stomach twisted. Mia gestured toward the folder. She said everything was in there, records of transfers, notes, screenshots of messages. She explained that over the years, the payments had grown more complicated. Sometimes they went directly to the ex-wife. Sometimes to a cousin. Sometimes to a lawyer. It started as hush money, Mia said. Then turned into leverage. I felt sick. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were printed screenshots of a bank account I didn't recognize. Small transfers at first. Then larger ones. Each labeled with vague descriptions, consulting, personal loan, settlement. The names matched the ones Mia had said. I asked whose account that was. Mia said it wasn't mine. It was Ava's. Silence flooded the room. I looked up at my best friend. She sat very still, her hands clenched together in her lap, knuckles white. I asked her if it was true. She said that Mia was twisting it, as always. She said that after the accident, she had felt so consumed by guilt that she couldn't ignore it. She had found the man's family and started helping. She had never once given my name. She had deliberately kept me out of it to protect me. Lucas asked how she got the money. She hesitated just a second too long. Then she said she had worked hard, taken on side projects, extra jobs. She said not all of us got to coast into comfortable corporate positions without grinding. My chest tightened. There was an edge in her voice directed at me. Mia cut in sharply. She said that was only half the story. She said yes, Ava had taken extra work. But she had also done something else. She had used our story. She had used my name and my guilt, without telling me, to pressure people into giving her money. Clients. Men she dated. People who wanted a sense of moral superiority. She had spun the tale of a tragic accident, a fragile friend, a noble act of secret restitution. It made people open their wallets. The room swam slightly. I told Mia that sounded insane. Mia's laugh was bitter. She said she had once adored Ava, thought she was the fiercest, most loyal person in the world. Then she had watched Ava build a life on a story that wasn't fully hers. A story that belonged to all of us, me, Mia, the man, his family. Ava had turned it into a currency. I turned to Ava again. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was firm. She said Mia was exaggerating. She admitted she had told some people about the accident in vague terms. She admitted she had accepted money sometimes when people offered to help. She insisted she had sent almost all of it to the family. She said a small cut had gone toward bills, sure, but that she had practically killed herself to make sure I never faced consequences. I felt my throat close. I asked her why she never gave me the choice. She said I would have chosen wrong. That hit me like a slap. She said I had always had a talent for self-destruction. For choosing chaos. For drowning in guilt. She said that if she had told me everything 5 years ago, I would have marched into a police station and confessed to something that now could never be proven. She said I would have ruined my own life out of some moral impulse that didn't take reality into account. She said she had decided to be the one who stayed calm. The one who carried the truth. The one who fixed it. She had decided for me. Lucas had been silent for a long time, absorbing all of this. Now he finally spoke. He said, very quietly, that he needed to know one thing. Had I truly not remembered? Or had I chosen not to? I looked at him, feeling like my heart was being peeled open. I told him that I remembered fragments. That I had always had a dark, unformed fear about that night. That I had experienced flashes, headlights, a noise, Ava's hands on my shoulders, but had never been able to connect them into something solid. I said that every time I tried to think about it, my mind bounced away, like it had hit a wall. I had told myself for years that it was just a bad hangover memory. I added that Ava had reassured me, over and over, that nothing terrible had happened. And I had believed her more than my own body. He searched my face like he was trying to decide whether that was enough. Mia spoke again. She said the reason she had finally come forward had nothing to do with money or revenge. It had to do with what Ava had done recently. I asked what that meant. Mia said that months ago, the man we had hit had died. Not from the original injuries. From complications years later, mobility issues, chronic pain, a fall that wouldn't have happened if his body hadn't been damaged. It had been in a local paper. She had seen it online and had spiraled with guilt. She had tried to talk to Ava about going to the family, telling them everything, offering a fuller account, maybe even contacting a lawyer. Ava had refused. She had said there was no point in blowing up lives now. She had said the man had already been compensated. She had said the original accident had never been conclusively tied to us, so balancing the moral scales now would only create new victims. Mia had been horrified. She had accused Ava of using the accident, not repairing it. They had fought. The kind of fight that ends friendships. Mia had left, moved cities, cut contact. She said she tried to bury it. But then she had learned that Ava was still taking money. That she was still telling the story. And worse, she was now telling it in ways that painted herself as the sole hero. I looked at Ava, stunned. Ava's face hardened. She said Mia was jealous, always had been. She said Mia couldn't stand that I trusted Ava more. She said Mia was now trying to rewrite history to make herself look like the noble one. All I saw were two women I had loved, standing on opposite sides of a story that belonged to all three of us. Mia turned to Lucas then. She said she had contacted him because she realized that Ava would never let me learn the truth willingly. She had hoped that if someone I loved, someone I planned a future with, knew the story, I would finally be forced to face it. She apologized to me then, said she was sorry for going behind my back, sorry for involving him. She said she had convinced herself there was no other way. Lucas looked at me, eyes full of pain. He said he did not know what scared him more, what I had done that night, or the fact that I had lived this long without fully knowing it. I felt my chest cave in. I told him I hadn't been ready then. I wasn't sure I was ready now. He ran a hand through his hair and stood up, pacing. He said he needed time. That hearing I might have been behind the wheel in a hit and run, even if the victim survived for years afterward, had shaken him. He said he wasn't sure what it meant about who I was, about my ability to face hard things. I wanted to scream that I was sitting there now, facing it. That I had walked into this room even though every part of me wanted to run. That I had not asked for any of the secrecy, that my worst crime now was believing the wrong person. But the words jammed in my throat. He said he needed air and stepped toward the door. I panicked, stood up too fast, grabbing his arm. I asked him if he was leaving for good. He said he didn't know yet. That cut deeper than any definite goodbye. He left the room. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, the silence shifted. It wasn't heavier. It was sharper. Edged. I turned to Ava and Mia, the two women who knew more about my life than I did. I said I needed them to answer one question honestly. I asked who had really decided to keep the secret. Mia said it had been Ava. Ava said it had been all of us. The answer landed somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. But something else gnawed at me. I remembered Ava saying earlier that I had driven drunk before and been fine. I remembered her voice telling me back then that she would fix it, that I had to forget. I remembered how quickly she had stepped into the role of the one who knew everything, while I knew nothing. A horrifying thought crept in. I asked them both what had happened after they swapped seats. After Ava put me into the back. Who had driven from then on? Mia answered first, instantly. She said Ava had. Ava hesitated a split second. Then said yes, she had. My heart stuttered. I asked if they were absolutely sure about when the impact happened. Before the seat swap. Or after. Silence. Mia looked uneasy. Ava's stare sharpened. I felt the ground shift beneath the foundation of the story. Because if they had switched seats before the car hit the man, then I had not been the driver. And if that was true, then everything I had been told, everything I had believed about myself, my guilt, my capacity for harm, was suddenly in question. Mia frowned and said she remembered the impact coming moments after we turned out of the parking lot. She said she thought I had still been driving, but it had all happened so fast. She admitted that sometimes, in her head, the sequence blurred. Ava spoke quickly, firmly. She insisted the impact had definitely happened while I was at the wheel. She said she was certain. She repeated that she had pulled me out and taken over only afterward. Her certainty felt rehearsed. A chill slid down my spine. For years Ava had held the story. Ava had determined what I was allowed to remember. Ava had shaped my guilt. Ava had used the accident in conversations with others to extract help, loyalty, money. If there was any ambiguity about who was actually driving at the moment of impact. Who benefited from me believing it was me? My pulse pounded in my ears. I looked at Ava. She looked back, eyes glittering with something I had never wanted to see in her. Control. Possession. Fear. And in that moment, I understood that the worst betrayal that night might not have been mine. It might have been hers. Ava's expression didn't change much, but something extremely small, almost imperceptible, shifted behind her eyes when I questioned who had actually been driving. It was the kind of change you only notice in someone you've known for a decade. The kind of flicker you see when a mask slips, not fully, but just enough that you realize they've been wearing one all along. Mia noticed it too. I saw her posture tighten, her hands folding and unfolding nervously in her lap. I repeated the question, slowly this time, each word carved out of something sharp and heavy inside me. I asked Ava if she was absolutely sure that the impact happened before she pulled me out of the driver's seat. Ava straightened a little. She said she was certain. I said I wasn't asking for certainty, I was asking for truth. Ava's jaw tightened. Mia spoke then. She said she wasn't sure anymore. She said she remembered headlights. A shout. A jolt. But the exact order? She admitted she didn't trust her memory perfectly. She said emotions and fear and guilt could blur things. She said trauma didn't work in straight lines. Ava told her to stop being dramatic. Mia told Ava to stop rewriting history. The air in the hotel room felt like a storm gathering. I stood up slowly. I felt shaky, but a different kind of energy began to move through me, something fierce, something I hadn't felt in years. I said that for 5 years I had lived under the belief that I was the one behind the wheel. That the worst parts of me, impulsive, reckless, thoughtless, had almost killed someone. That I was responsible for the worst night of my life. That I had carried a guilt I couldn't name because Ava told me it was mine. I said that if she had been wrong about the order of events. She wasn't wrong, Ava said too quickly. I said if she had been wrong. She wasn't wrong. I said if she had been wrong. My whole life was built on a lie. That landed. Ava's face went rigid. Mia whispered that she remembered Ava being behind the wheel when they stopped the car further down the road, but that she wasn't sure if she had taken over before or after the impact. Ava said Mia was mixing things up intentionally. Mia snapped that Ava had always needed me to depend on her. That Ava had always needed to be the one who saved me, the one who protected me, the one holding all the strings. Ava's voice rose then, sharp and defensive. She said she had saved my life that night. She said I had been drunk, hysterical, out of control. She said if she hadn't done what she did, I would have confessed, ruined myself, ruined my family. She said I had no idea how many times she had protected me from myself. My chest tightened painfully. I turned to her and asked her the question I didn't want the answer to. I asked her if she had ever considered the possibility that SHE was the one who hit the man. She froze. Not fully. Just a flicker. But enough. I saw Mia's eyes widen in realization. Ava whispered that she was trying to help. She said she took over because I had been crying so hard she thought I would crash. She said it didn't matter who hit the man, that what mattered was survival. I told her it mattered to me. I told her the truth mattered to me. She shook her head slowly, almost pityingly. She said I had always been idealistic. That I saw the world in sharp lines, good, bad, right, wrong. She said real life was murkier. She said she had learned that early. She said she had protected me from that truth for years. I asked why she never let me choose. She swallowed hard. Then she told me something that made every hair on my arms stand up. She said I would never have chosen her. Not really. Not fully. Not the way she had chosen me. It took me a moment to understand what she meant. When I finally did, my entire body went cold. I whispered her name, not sure if I was begging her to stop or begging her to say more. She kept going. She said I had always been her person. Since we met in college. Since the first time I fell apart in her bathroom after my father died. Since she held my hair while I cried for hours. The first time I told her I felt alone in the world, she said it felt like something inside her finally snapped into place. She said she had loved me since then. Not like a friend. More than that. So much more. I stared at her, stunned. She said she never planned to tell me. She said she never expected anything from me. She said she wasn't delusional, she knew I liked men, that my relationships were always with men, that I had been falling for Lucas from the first week we met him. She said she had accepted that. But she also said something else. She said she was terrified of losing me to someone else. Especially to someone like Mia. Or Lucas. My pulse quickened. I told her she was scaring me. She said she had been scared for years. I took a step back. She took a step forward. Mia stood up immediately, putting herself between us. Ava's eyes flashed. Anger. Fear. Pain. She said Mia had always been jealous of us. That Mia had tried to pull me away from her. That Mia had taken everything Ava had told me in confidence and twisted it. That Mia had made herself into the hero when Ava had done everything. Mia shot back that Ava had used me. That Ava had isolated me. That Ava had controlled how I saw myself, how I saw my past, how I saw my trauma. That Ava had built her identity around being my protector. My breathing grew shallow. I whispered for them both to stop. But they didn't. They kept yelling. And as they shouted at each other, a few things fell into place in my mind. Ava had never liked Mia. Ava had isolated me from other friends. Ava had wanted me reliant on her. Ava had told me what to remember and what to forget. Ava had been the gatekeeper of the accident for 5 years. Ava had gained something from me believing I was guilty. Because I had needed her. I sank into the chair, my heart pounding, my hands trembling. Lucas wasn't here. He wasn't here to see any of this. He wasn't here to see who Ava really was. Or who I had become under her influence. Ava turned to me again. Her voice softened, dangerously. She said she loved me. That she had always loved me. And that she had wanted to protect me from the version of myself I hated. I asked her if she protected me from the truth. She said yes. I asked her if she protected me from my guilt. She said yes. Then I asked the final question. I asked her if she protected me from the accident. Or protected herself. Ava's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. But no sound came out. The room went silent. Mia took a step closer to me, as if ready to intervene. Ava's eyes darted between the two of us. Something frantic crossed her expression. She said we were remembering things wrong. She said memory was unreliable. She said it didn't matter anymore. She said the man was dead now. She said telling me the truth would destroy me. She said she was the only one who could keep me safe. Then her voice cracked. And she whispered that she would do anything, to keep things the way they were. That was the moment the knock came. A sharp, sudden knock at the hotel door. We all froze. Ava's face drained of color. Mia whispered that she wasn't expecting anyone. I asked if Ava invited someone else. Ava shook her head, terrified. The knock came again. Harder. Lucas's voice called my name from the hallway. I exhaled in relief. Ava did not. She stepped backward, almost stumbling. Something was wrong. I opened the door. Lucas stood there, pale, shaken. He said he had gone downstairs to clear his head. He said he had asked the front desk a question. He said the clerk had told him that Mia had only checked into the hotel 1 hour ago. The same time Lucas and I left the restaurant. Meaning? Ava had been alone with me for over an hour before Mia arrived. Meaning? The person who had booked the room wasn't Mia. The reservation was under Ava's name. I turned slowly toward Ava. Her face twisted, fear, desperation, something unhinged. Mia whispered that she sensed something off earlier, that Ava had insisted on this location, insisted on the private suite, insisted it had to be tonight. Lucas stepped inside, I scanning the room. He saw the folder. He saw Ava's face. He saw Mia's trembling posture. Something clicked for him. He asked in a low voice why Ava brought us here. Ava said she wanted us all to heal. Lucas shook his head. He said healing doesn't happen in secret hotel rooms with manipulated information and mixed truths. He said Ava had orchestrated this. Ava screamed that she had not. Mia yelled that she had. I stood completely still. The final piece slid into place. I asked Ava who had really contacted Lucas first. Was it actually Mia? Or had it been Ava? Pretending to be Mia? Sending those messages? Sending that folder? Pushing the meeting? Choosing the date? Choosing the time? Choosing the place? Ava's silence was answer enough. Mia looked horrified. She whispered that Ava must have accessed her email. That Ava had stolen the folder from her apartment. That she had planned this. Ava broke then, fully. She sobbed. She said she had been losing me. That Lucas was taking me away. That Mia had always been a threat. That the accident was the one thing that bound me to her. That if the truth changed. If my guilt vanished. If I wasn't the one driving. Then I wouldn't need her anymore. I whispered that she had built our entire friendship on fear. She said she had built it on love. Then she pulled out her phone. Scrolling fast. Opening her photo gallery. Showing us something. A video. Not from the accident. From after. Ava, standing on the sidewalk. Not panicked. Not crying. Calm. Filming the scene. The man on the road. The ambulance lights. Officers talking. Her voice whispering behind the camera. She'll never remember it was me. My breath left my body. The room spun violently. Mia gasped, covering her mouth. Lucas stepped back like he'd been punched. Ava dropped the phone, sobbing. She said she was sorry. She said she panicked. She said she couldn't lose me. She said she didn't know how deep it had gone. She said she thought if she carried the guilt for both of us, we'd be bound together forever. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. She had stolen my memory. She had weaponized it. She had built a life on it. I backed away, chest tight, tears burning my eyes. Lucas grabbed my hand, not possessively, but to steady me. Ava reached forward, desperate. She said she could fix this. She said she could explain. She said she loved me more than anyone else ever would. I whispered the last words I ever said to her. That was never your choice to make. And then I walked out of the hotel room. Past the woman I thought was my best friend. Past the girl who had shaped my guilt. Past the history I had been forced to inherit. Into the hallway. Into the elevator. Into a future that was suddenly mine again. A messy future. A painful one. A heavy one. But at least it was mine.